And now for more, it's a pleasure to welcome to studio Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserves, Jonathan Conricus, former international spokesman in the IDF and a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Oseran. Gentlemen, thank you both so much. Such an important and critical time in the war, in the history of this region. Jonathan, your response to start to what we've just heard right now, this recognition, and what is likely to follow next? Your thoughts?
I see clowns, losers, and terrorists. And I am blunt, but yes, this recognition, I think, is clownish. It is based on unsound opinions. It is reckless because it isn't based on any reality. And I think Ambassador Ayalon said it very succinctly. The Palestinian state meets exactly none of the requirements of a functioning state from all aspects, and therefore any forced recognition of such a fictitious state is indeed clownish. And I think it brings me to the second point, and that is about the losers. Gazans are losers. Israelis today are losing. The Israeli government lost, and I think missing from the Prime Minister's statement in Hebrew, instead of only pointing fingers outwards, should be pointing backwards, and at least in Hebrew, acknowledging to Israelis that, yes, this is a colossal diplomatic failure on his God. While he is prime minister, we find ourselves facing what is probably a lowest point in the last 20, 30, or 40 years diplomatically, and that's saying a lot. And terrorists are happy. Terrorists are happy because this is a tremendous, resounding win for Hamas. What this means is that even if IDF will apply tremendous military pressure in Gaza, and even if there will be mounting casualties for Hamas, they will not be incentivized to give up, to hand over the hostages, and to agree to end the war, because they see that their path is winning. So clowns, losers, and terrorists, that is unfortunately what this recognition is. Very sad day, and I think it is something that that gentleman and many others who are part of it will look back at and really regret that they made.
And still in studio, Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserve, Jonathan Conricus, and our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Oseran. We've discussed the diplomatic pressure Israel is facing right now on the international stage, and it's going to increase in the coming days and weeks. When you look at the military pressure right now, how is this impacting, firstly, the war coming to an end, and secondly, securing the release of the hostages in the near future?
I fear that the effect will be negative on both ends, or both aims, and that Hamas will continue to disengage, to lay low, to hide underground in their tunnels. That, by the way, they have had plenty of time to prepare and ready, because Israel has been telegraphing ahead of time that it's coming. Not only that it is coming, but where it's going to come, which direction, and most importantly, when. So Hamas has had a lot of time to prepare itself militarily for this, which I think they've used. And I understand that what they're doing, disengaging, waiting for Israel to run out of international currency, i.e. President Trump's support, because the rest already doesn't exist. And once that starts to happen, then I think we would see Hamas emerge above ground, which we are not seeing now, as far as what I understand from Israeli troops. We're not seeing any significant Hamas activity. We will see Hamas terrorists out, and then they will start to conduct these localized guerrilla attacks against Israeli forces, causing casualties. I hope not, but that is what I think they will be aiming for, and then to have mounting domestic pressure and international pressure. One only positive thing, my colleague at FDD, Rich Goldberg, said something interesting that, well, if there's a Palestinian state, then surely the UK, Australia, and the other countries in Canada, who are big contributors to UNRWA, should now immediately move to disassemble UNRWA. Because if there's a Palestinian state, then of course there's no need for a Palestinian refugee organization, and UNRWA should be disbanded immediately, with immediate effect, because there's a Palestinian state. So I hope at least that these countries will have the intellectual integrity to do such a thing.
No doubt they've processed that potential development as well. We've discussed before the role that Egypt could be playing or should be playing. There are reports that Israel asked the US to pressure Egypt over its military buildup in the Sinai Peninsula. What do you make of that? What can you tell us, your insights?
Well, I'm listening to a lot of heated rhetoric in Arabic, in Egyptian media. I hear government-affiliated people, I hear politicians, I hear civil society leaders, and I see TV hosts. And it's pretty much along the escalatory line of, well, if Israel does this and that, most of it focuses on allowing Palestinians out of Gaza, then the peace treaty is null and void, and Egypt will be legitimate to take any steps that it sees right for them. Couple that with enhanced troop presence, Egyptian troop presence in the Sinai, in complete and blatant violation of the 1979 peace accords, the military attachment to it. So we're seeing quite escalatory situation here, and maybe it's for the first time really since October 7 that there really is pressure on Egypt. I regret that. That is pressure that in my mind should have been there 2 years before, and this is 2 years too late. Had pressure been applied effectively by Israel via the US on Egypt, this war could have been over a long time ago. Palestinians would have suffered far less. Hamas would have been defeated because they would have been exposed of the human shields that, as we saw, they're using, and sadly quite effectively. So I think there's a lot at play here. And I hope that the Israeli government will start to leverage the tools at its disposal in order to apply pressure on Egypt. Egypt has been a very dishonest broker, and I think a very cynical and cruel towards their Arab brothers.
Still in studio, Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserve, Jonathan Conricus. It certainly would be something unique to have news like this happening right now between Israel and Syria. It's just about to be New Year for the Jewish nation and for communities around the world. And of course, we know that Benjamin Netanyahu heads to New York very, very soon. He'd love to make a full announcement. So would President Donald Trump. Tell us more.
What I think is happening is that there's a competition for who gets to remodel Syria. There is Turkey in the north. There is Iran, who so far is losing and lost many years of investment and influence. They had Syria as a stepping stone and as a launch pad against Israel and as a weapons convoy to Lebanon. They no longer have it. And what basically the US is doing is stepping in first and saying, we will lead the process of bringing Syria back into the family of nations. And the agreement here, this security agreement with Israel, I think that is just part of bringing Syria in from the cold. We're going to see the head of the Syrian state address the UN for the first time in, I think, more than 40 years. And that's no small thing. And that is thanks to, I think, his willingness and his strategic cleverness to be part of this, to come under the American umbrella. And we're talking about security, we're talking about energy, we're talking about lots of deals for investment in infrastructure, and changing the security situation between Israel and Syria. Now, on the table, I think we have to be very clear-eyed and very vigilant about whom we're dealing with. We are dealing with jihadists in suits that all of their lives dreamt jihad and wanted to establish a Sharia-based entity in Syria and, for that matter, all over the world. So what we have here is a security agreement that what Israel wants, and that appears to be what's going to happen, a large buffer zone between Israel and a no-weapon zone inside Syria, so that Israel won't have to deploy inside Syria, and the Syrian state will take care of security there. If that happens, then that is a good something to start working on. And I think Israel is doing this in order to have a backdrop and a countermeasure to Palestinian recognitions at the UN.
Many remain skeptical indeed. Appreciate your insights, though. We are watching. Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserves, Jonathan Conricus, appreciate you being here in studio. Thank you so much.